Hello, everyone. This is Tijen Genco. I am a master certified coach and board certified health and wellness coach. I have David Shen here with me. He is a life and health and wellness coach as well. We are going to talk about somatic coaching, especially when it relates to the somatic coach training that I offer under Genco coaching methodology and under Genco coaching training offerings. Welcome, David.
Yeah, thanks for having me here to talk about somatic coaching today.
My pleasure. What would you like our audience to know about your coaching business and your coaching approach?
Well, it is very appropriate that we're talking about somatic coaching because I've really taken that aspect and what I've learned through Tijen's course and melded it quite closely with a lot of the other coaching techniques that I've learned over the last 3 years. And so well, I started with a lot of health and wellness type coaching because that's still something that I have great passion for and lots of interest in. It's broadened to other areas like mental health and a lot of esoteric things that I've been playing with, like dream journeying and shamanism and those kind of things, which are all fun. And also, well, we may get into that a little bit with the somatic coaching talk today.
Excellent. Good. So, where would you like us to start then?
Yeah, for our viewers, I think that it'd be great to just define, what exactly is somatic coaching for those who might not be as familiar as they'd like to be. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So, is I guess again for the viewers to know, both David and I have technical background and then got into coaching. So, I see that when I look at the coaching scientific and evidence-based methodologies, they often are inherited from the therapy area, and they often focus, at least their language focuses the mind. And so then, as a certified yoga meditation and mindfulness teacher, I know, and I also felt it for me, that certain things needed more engagement from the body as well. So there is the holistic aspect of human being instead of just relating to the mind. So as I see somatic coaching is engaging one's entire being, whether that's the physiological, biological, energetic, magnetic field, the mind, the soul, the spirit, all that is and more. Although the soma words come from Greek language that it speaks about the body itself. But I think that my approach is more the esoteric approach, that there are many layers of the body that is all called body. So in my approach, at least, that I think the somatic approach is including the entire human system with all the layers.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's where I also saw a lot of traditional coaching coming from, just a lot of things that focus really on the mind and the brain and habits and those kind of things, but really leaving out the rest of the human, right? The rest of a person. And so it was really interesting being in that course with you to really talk about the body and its melding with the mind. But also what you talk about is really interesting too, and has been really resonant with me, is not only talking about it just the physical body that we see here, but also all sorts of other expressions of the body, if you will, energetically and through other viewpoints and disciplines, spiritually as well. And I think there's some really interesting things that can happen there. Why did you choose to meld all those disciplines together into what you offer now?
Yeah, I think that it all comes, everything, almost or everything comes from necessity.
Mm.
So when I went through life experiences, when I was challenged through life, um, I was looking for remedies for myself to soothe my being, whether it's my soul, my emotions, my body, my mind. And it happened to be in one of the areas that was happening, some tragedies were happening in my life while I was going through coach training. So the coach training was excessively helpful because you, as you know, that you've been through it, there is exchange coaching, that you're being coached all the time, so that was helpful, but still wasn't, some parts of me were not being soothed. So and then I was, as a movement teacher, yoga, Pilates teacher, I was seeing that certain movements, as I helped my students in the studio, they were feeling much more relieved, and I was validating same at home. So I started to put people into the poses and start asking coaching questions, and that revealed such amazing results, especially when I placed people with their will, of course,
Mm-hmm.
into the restorative poses, because there you are resting in the emotion or discomfort, whatever it is in the body, and looking deeper while being still. So that sort of necessity started directed me into developing these comprehensive approaches, and I really seen the results on myself and the clients over the years. um, I wonder if you wanted to add anything through your experiences in the training.
Yeah, the it mirrors a lot of what I was experiencing too, where just for example, I have this hip issue, and I had tried everything from a traditional, conventional medical point of view, from massaging with balls to stretching and all sorts of stuff. And you only get to a certain point, and then you're like, okay, well, it's still kind of tight, achy, whatever it is. Um, is that all there is, right? And they often meet clients who will go, oh, that's it, right? I have to live with my pain. I have to live with my whatever. And what I've discovered over these last couple of years is that there's actually a whole world that we have not touched. And even just recently, for what I've experienced and with my hip, right, going through the somatic coaching course, and also all the different things that it brings, actually brought even more relief and more healing to the hip. I was
Mm.
like, wow, that's so interesting, that what we thought was purely physical, right? And people tried to describe with neurons and this affecting this muscle and inhibiting that, blah, 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 all this stuff. Really, actually, there's more to it, potentially, that is beyond what a traditionally trained doctor can bring. And so that's where this is going a little beyond, but it's very much about bringing hope, I think, to clients,
Mm.
because oftentimes people will get to that point where, oh, every expert I've talked to has told me this is it, therefore it must be it. And what I'm finding, and hopefully what I can instill in my clients, is that, you know what, you have not even touched what is possible. And please don't stop, right? And to keep having hope, and because there is more to be explored, and you may actually find the answer there and not where you were before.
Mm,
Yeah.
beautiful. Yeah, thank you. I just want to share for the audience that we're not talking about creating miracles for people, not at all. But there are obviously certain things that I'm going a little deeper into the context here, sits in the unconscious or subconscious, that is unavailable to the conscious mind. So when we engage the physicalness of the body, then the body itself, whatever is restricted, stuck, or not allowed, starts to express itself, and therefore then change becomes available. via the choice of the client. So obviously there are certain patterns in the human being that includes the biology as well as physiology and spirit are inherited in the particular life term. We're not talking about those things, but that certain things we can bring further into the awareness that can offer change possibilities.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, because oftentimes our traditional coaching techniques will take a client to a certain point and they can't seem to get past that point.
Mm.
But once we engage the body, I know you've seen it and I've seen it too, where, wow, that it gave them, like you said, a new opportunity to actually affect change. Whereas before there was just using their brain and their mind, they just couldn't get there.
Mm.
But once we put their whole body into it, their whole spirit into it, then wow, things started to really move,
Mm.
whereas they weren't before. So yeah.
Beautiful said. Thanks.
Yeah. So what other kind of strengths and advantages have you observed through bringing this all together in your very unique way?
I think that in the way I'm teaching this, of course, that I'm offering wide variety of esoteric approaches, as well as the evidence-based coaching methodologies together. And especially the level one, it's really comprehensive introduction of the coaches, or at least reminder of the coaches to those methodologies that exist, and help them to really understand how to engage those methodologies in the strategic inquiry to create awareness. And some of them may resonate with the coach more, and some of them resonate with the coach less, and some of them resonate with the client more, and some of them resonate with the client less. But idea is to expand the coach's vocabulary so that they can actually engage the body too, or the energetic system of the human being, to start creating further inquiries and change possibilities. So those are the things that I see it as the strengths. And also my approach is that I call this is like, my teaching is almost has the doctorate flavor, that I introduce people into the concepts, and whatever they resonate, they go find further research, so that it just expands their knowledge as well as awareness about what's possible, what's not possible, and then also technical ways of that I teach, because I do different ways of engaging the different types of learners, and including case studies, as well as mentor sessions with it. So I'm wondering if there is anything you would like to share from your experience as the strengths of this training.
Yeah, it was quite a broad introduction to a lot of different things. And I remember before the class had started, you gave us all this reading material, and the reading material had a whole bunch of stuff in there. And I remember just finding the chapter on pendulums, like, oh, what's that? And then I went to the chapter on this and that. It was just, there's a whole bunch of stuff in there. And I just started racing down all these different paths, even before the course started. So it was very valuable from that perspective. And then not only did I get an introduction to them now, where I didn't really have, I mean, I knew what they were, but I didn't really read about them. Then I could see some of those in action during the class itself. So, and then the resonant part, I think, is really important, because, you know, some of those things, like, you know, I'll put those aside for a little while. And then some of those, like, wow, I got to race down this path because something's happening in me, or something's happening in my methods and how I work. So yeah, it was quite wide in terms of all the disciplines that you've melded together. And like you said, it's a doctorate level course. So uh, not trying to scare off any beginners coming in there or anything like that, but there is a place where I think we have to resonate. We have to recognize our resonance with certain concepts, and we have to chase them ourselves because it's valuable for us to do that, versus just being taught every single esoteric technique in the universe in 6 weeks or whatever it is, 12 weeks. Yeah, so now we're diving into, what this course looks like. And so, can you briefly describe, what students might experience if they start this class with you?
Yeah, I designed the course in a way that currently what I'm doing is that over the weekends, 6.5 weeks, I teach body systems and how to get into the body systems via reflective Genco method meditation, as well as the restorative yoga positions. So that there are two benefits of that. The students get to experience firsthand, it will help the tactile learners, but also it supports the coaches awareness too in their body, what's happening. And therefore it's in a way very supportive of coaches changes and ascension into the new level of awareness as well. So weekends, although that we talk about theory, but it's very experiential. And then currently, again, on Wednesdays, we have mentor sessions. There we take a client and collectively coach. So the students actually observe how I am approaching to this, as well as they get to coach too. So, and I just want to say that I teach this through the yoga positions mostly, and then there are obviously meditations and other modalities as it becomes relevant to, like, when I'm teaching mind and body system, then I'm more teaching meditation and so on. But I am doing that to, again, create vocabulary and enhance the coaches' learning. Then if they choose not to use the poses, then they don't have to. So in a way that they are learning, and then the choice is theirs. So that's how I structured it. And in between there are reading assignments, the homework assignments to create additional reflections. And then the student gets to practice with their clients to develop case study, which is the final half week. Students present their case studies and also develop a brief somatic approached class, so that to demonstrate their learning and what they're taking from the course. So I wonder what, if anything, you like to add to that.
Yeah, I found the experiential aspect very valuable. So it wasn't just sitting there and seeing presentations on yoga poses, right? Which could have happened that way.
Yeah.
But we actually got on the mat and we got prepared to experience them ourselves. Some yoga poses didn't have any effect on me, but then some were like, whoa, this, and that's the valuable part where you realize, oh, that's the way it could feel on me. So, oh, that's what someone that I'm directing a client, that's what they're going through as well. And also observing all the different permutations that can happen, especially during the Wednesday's mentor coaching class, is really interesting to watch, as each one of us students got to be the client, all the different ways that certain physical positions can result in something, all the different ways it could be done. We, I think, had 2 or 3 maybe poses, maybe up to 4 or something like that. And I remember when I was the client, I just sat in one the whole time. So yeah, so you don't really need that many, or none at all, actually. That's also possible too. So yeah, it was just really interesting to see all the different ways that this can happen, and the different reactions and the different conditions and things that could happen within the client too. And then how do we bring that to resolution too? And they're very much like traditional coaching structure, I think, in a sessions. But then with this kind of physical flavor put on top of it, all things are are slightly different, both familiar and then unfamiliar as well, which made the course really, yeah, just fascinating to watch every class that we did. Yeah, and can you talk about the case studies? Like, why did you choose to ask all the students to create one and all that? Can you talk a little about that?
Yeah, before I became a coach, I was an external coach. I was an internal coach, and I delivered a lot of trainings also in the corporate environment, especially as a Lean Six Sigma expert. What I found that if you just engage the mind and there wasn't enough practice, then the trainings become ineffective soon after people leave. They don't know how to implement it. So I took that as a best practice, not that, but that thought,
Mm-hmm.
and make sure that the students start implementing whatever they're learning as they learn,
Mm-hmm.
so that I that's why that pretty much every training of mine carries the case study, so that students learn something that week and they are to go and practice that with the client that week. So that was the intention, and then they also get to present. So I want to develop my students a full round that coaches, so they also learn to present in a very professional environment, time bound environment, show their PowerPoint presentation, talk about what happened to the clients, as well as take us through the training. So that those were my intentions, and I wondered if there's anything you want to add from your experience for that.
Yeah, I've been through several case study presentations with you over the last 2 or 3 years, and yeah, they're probably not as bad as I thought they would be in the beginning, and it's a great way to showcase whatever happened, and not to get caught up in, oh, this client didn't make it wherever they thought they would make it, but more just about what we learned doing along that way, and if we did things well or not well, and where the client benefited and didn't benefit. But yeah, also it is good to have that time clock, because it's so easy to just go, right? Just keep rambling on and on and on. And I was a timekeeper for the last class, so it was like, God, stop right now. Yeah, definitely so. But it's good to have that capability to not go on and on about things, and to organize your thoughts, and to
Mhm.
talk cogently and concisely about what happened. Yeah, also it was a good time to reflect back on the experience of being with one client. um, Oftentimes I think a lot of coaching engagements, they don't go on that long, right? So we asked our practice clients to be with us for the entire course time, and they did their best they could to go through that many sessions and all that. So it was really good to see someone for a longer period of time, rather than oftentimes it's like one off or 2 to 4 times and then that's it. And so we could really make strides, and as well as practice the techniques that we learn. And we could just throw a lot of different things at them to see what they would respond to. And yeah, the whole thing was a great experience to have the practice clients, and then to reflect on that experience with that person, and then be able to just present all of it at one shot. There was also a demonstration of skills, which is also a nerve-wracking thing. No, it wasn't that nerve-wracking, but yeah, it was just, yeah, there's no better way to kind of show that you learned something by just showing that you can do it, right? Whether it's a video thing that a lot of people do with coaching classes that we have to produce a recording, but here we had to do it live. But it was, yeah, it was a great experience, I thought. And the more you do it, the more less nervous you get. So it's not that big a deal. Trust me on that.
Good, I'm glad. And I want to tell the audience I'm not that scary of it.
I know the fear is in our own minds. Yeah.
Oh, good.
Yeah. So a lot of things covered right in this course. How do you see all the different ways that these things can be applied to someone who's a life coach, a business coach, health and wellness coach, executive coaching? Can you give some examples of how this might be deployed by somebody?
Yeah. So what I say is that not every coach, this technique is not going to be applicable for every coach. If the engaging with your body is not your thing, then this is not your tool. It's the same thing for also with the client. However, the main thing that I see this is that if the client is keep coming to you with the same thing, that's an indication that whatever the tools or techniques that you're using is not working. There is something deeper. And so that may be an invitation for changing the technique. And I use this whether I'm coaching the boardroom persons or I am coaching somebody in a yoga studio, health and wellness, everywhere. And then it is different. Obviously, if I'm coaching an executive in a boardroom, I'm not going to put them in a yoga mat unless that's what they want.
Yeah, I was just I had this vision of a CEO getting in his tights or whatever and falling on a yoga mat. Maybe not so possible, right?
Yeah, well, although that I shared this with another student that I found out through my Google information, people were searching me as an executive yogini, but so that may be possible. But
Yeah.
you don't need to actually really put people into the pose. Just even asking what might be happening for you, like a being question right now. Where might you be feeling this, if there is a feeling language is used, or even the resistance, or reactive language, something that is repetitive in the client language, we can descend into the body and ask questions. A more inclusive language. This is really somatic comes from with the inclusive language instead of directing client directly into the mind or the thinking. Obviously, we have so many systems. We have respiratory system, circulatory system, all that. And brain is just one part, right? Every other organ can, or the muscles and the nervous system can use some coaching too. So that's where I see the applications. And I wonder, what are your thoughts and where are you applying?
Yeah, right now, I'm considering the gamut of possibilities. It could be at some point, I run a somatic coaching type class in a yoga style. I am working on a yoga certification, so that may happen once we get organized and out of the pandemic. And then, yeah, and then, but on the other side, I haven't stopped practicing the technique. So, I've melded it as much as I can into my traditional coaching practice. So that's just one-on-one through Zoom. There isn't any yoga pose or anything like that, but there's all these great clues now that pop up, as the conversation goes, or I might inquire to facilitate those clues to pop up. I remember one where we were doing a visualization exercise and somehow the color green, popped up as a color of something they were visualizing. And I said, oh, what does that have to do with your heart? Given the relationship with the heart chakra, and boom, that exploded into a whole opening and awakening and awareness just down that path. And it's happened over and over again where I've used a lot of the things that we've learned, the associations with energetic associations with organs and also the chakras and other things, other parts of the body, even relationships to your parents and other ancestors that we've touched on. And all those, if the insight comes through this teaching, the course, and then it gave me insight into something, it's almost always right. And it's so amazing to see that. I go, oh, so what did your father have to do with that? And then they're like, whoa, and then we never get into like, why did Dave ask about the father at that point? But it was, usually something that they were expressing in their body, or maybe they said they were achy in this part of the body or not. So that part has been really valuable. Instead of getting stuck into, oh, well, what question do I ask next? Or what, did I miss something in my interpretation or whatever, what I was sensing, right? Like, then you get nervous, right? And then you don't know what to say next and you might fumble. But with the addition of these techniques, it's really opened up different possibilities, different avenues of inquiry. And I don't think I can even think of a time when it didn't do something valuable for the client. Yeah.
So what I'm hearing on that is that looks like it strengthened your ability to utilize your intuition as a coach, as well as the inviting client to their intuition and sensations as well.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And this is something that maybe I should ask you about in a second, which is, oftentimes when we take coaching courses, we always say that there's a lot of growth that happens with the coach. And with this course, a lot of growth happened to me. And it really opened up my senses, increased my ability to sense, my intuition, all that stuff really opened up another couple levels, after I went through this class. So what do you think typically happens to students when they go through the course to themselves, after they take it? Like, what kind of things have you observed they've awakened and grown? What have you seen?
One of my favorite thing offering this course is to reading the end of course reflections of the students. It's such an honoring and heart fulfilling thing for me to see how the course touched them and to their clients, and how transformative for them the course was. And sometimes even during the course, I receive emails from the clients of the students to say,
Oh,
this is so amazing, and how life-changing that is for them. And what I see is that, again, there is you hear me as your mentor quite a lot, invitation, right? There is a lot of invitation to occupy the body in full presence, because when we go through the traumas of our lives, we kind of escape a little bit energetically and don't stay present. The coach's ability to stay present in the moment enhances, as well as noticing their patterning, what's happening in their body, what is being stored in the liver, what's happening in the piriformis muscle, right? What happens in the hip joint, and so what memories are coming in, and so it is quite transformative that way. And so what I observe through the course, and of course, as you know, that weekend courses, after pretty much every pose, we have a dialogue too that demonstrates what's happening. There is a lot of awakening. There is a lot more being okay, being who they are. There is more accepting different parts. There is a lot of resolution for the things require deeper grief processing, guilt, shame processing. There is also then the physical expression of the release that shows up often for the physical ailments. Sometimes, if somebody, for example, especially if they have an addiction, that's often comes in the family lineage. Even then, their relationship to the parent can change too as they find resolution in there. So there's quite a lot of benefits that often happens. Yeah.
Yeah, just the increase in awareness, I think, is valuable. And you see it through the mentor coaching sessions where you can see just a lot of people, a lot of the students that are the clients during those times, they just find out so much about themselves that they didn't know by being the client. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Oh, one other thought I had, because this a lot of this is based on yoga poses, and how much experience do you think that students need from a yoga standpoint to be able to participate in this class?
I would say just them to know what yoga is should be sufficient, because although that I am guiding the practice through the yoga pose,
Mhm.
I am not teaching anybody to get on a handstand.
That's level two, right?
We are in a very supportive poses, and that's why that the viewers can also watch the video about the props that I use in this training. There is a lot of support with the blankets and bolsters, the straps and the chair, and students learn that as well as learn to get in and out of a pose. Of course, if they're not interested doing the poses at all, they can do that. I have yet to have any student express that need. Um, but I don't think that they need to be experienced intermediate yoga Pilates student to get into this training. I thought that although you're quite athletic, you didn't have a continuing yoga practice or Pilates practice when you took the course, correct?
Yeah, I took yoga on and off over many, many years. I've dropped into classes and stopped for one reason or another. But at least I was familiar with it. And I have other movement practices. So from a physical movement standpoint, there wasn't anything that felt uncomfortable for me. So that was okay from my side. But that also it leads to the question of what other things that might be valuable for students to have beforehand, if anything, before they enter into this. Because it was quite for me, an enjoyable learning curve, a very steep one, because I just started digging into a lot of things. But was there anything that you thought might be something that, or some things that might be valuable for students to have before they take this class?
Yeah, often I say this to the people before they come to my meditation, the side effect.
Mm,
The side effect is they can experience deep relaxation, deep transformation, and obviously much more so, I think, than a standard
mm,
coach training. So if somebody is not interested in getting that intimate with themselves that much,
mm,
or they are not ready for that magnitude of change. Sometimes, people are willing, but they may not have the capacity. So many other things might be happening. So it is something that I often say it in my chemistry sessions, that my sessions are deeply transformative. Are you ready for such a change? So that's something that the student needs to consider. And 6.5 weeks of training, we're teaching this bi-weekly. That gives some time. And I have students even participated. They are like a single mother with 4 kids, different
mm,
ages. They managed it. And the sessions are recorded, but it is a packed program. and it is an introductory program. So if you are somebody wanting to learn everything to the T all at once, then it can get a lot, because I'm introducing to the resources so that people can understand how to return back to them. But if the person has a tendency to wanting to learn everything all at once, all together, every detail, then it could get overwhelming. Do you have anything else to add to that?
Yeah, only that once you dig into the esoteric side of things, there's so much there. And in each area, you could spend your whole lifetime kind of diving down that route. So it's that part's challenging, but it would seem like that openness to at least one or two of those areas before you got in would be a good idea, versus just being a strict talk kind of coaching,
One person,
yeah,
yeah.
tradition, yeah, evidence-based kind of coaching person. That might be valuable to have that willingness to accept these kind of things and the transformations that can occur on top of that, which could be quite large and unexpected, by the way, in all sorts of different ways.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's almost like a roller coaster. It's like, get on it, don't know where you're going to get off, but it's going to be a wild ride before you get there. Yeah, what else would you like to say in closing about the somatic coaching course?
I think what I want to say that again, level one is an introductory system to the technique, as well as a lot of the esoteric methodologies. Then the level 2, 3, and beyond, then we'll get into deeper into the subject matter areas. So that's something maybe the audience would like to know. And anything about Genco coaching offerings, as the trainings, often active trainings, are under upcoming events page that people can find that information there. And anything that are part of the Genco methodology training offerings, and we are not offering actively or not at the calendar yet, they are under the Genco method training page that people can send us in inquiry to find out when that next will be, when next offering will be. Right now, I'm offering them twice a year, but I don't know how is that going to be for the next year. So it's sort of like on demand whenever I have lesser demand on my calendar, kind of an offering. And they are also very taxing for me in a way, because it takes a lot as a teacher to offer that kind of a training for me. So I need to also follow what I teach to take care of myself along the way. Yeah. And yeah, anything else you wanted to add, David?
No, just only to watch the training courses page and the upcoming events page, because I know you and I have talked about a whole bunch of really interesting stuff coming up in the next couple months, years. Yeah, bringing out all that specialness that you've done to meld all these different disciplines together and to express them in many different ways as techniques, but also then courses for us to learn more.
Thank you. And David, when the viewers would like to know more of your offerings, how can they find you?
Yeah, my website is www.coachdshen.com. You can contact me there and find out what I'm about. So yeah, if you want to get together and talk about things or do some coaching sessions of all sorts of different kinds, somatic or otherwise, I'd be happy to help you out.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for your time and helping me to pass the message out.
Thank you for having me. It was a great time.
Thanks.